So we've all seen that iOS has had a new coat of paint recently, and by a new coat of paint, I should say a coat of liquid glass. While Apple's going with this glassy, liquidy type thing, Android has also had an update that makes everything feel a little bit more expressive. The UI now adapts to the background you set on your phone, so if you've got something like a blue, green or yellow wallpaper, it'll adapt and everything just looks great. While both of these platforms seem to be going in a different direction in terms of their looks, one thing they've both been focusing on is their micro animations. iOS has these sleek, morphing globs and blobs that pop and push into each other as the controls on the screen change. Google's also had an extra spice in the way that notifications magnetically stick together as you swipe them away. Your recent app was always to shake like an earthquake has happened when one of them comes crashing down. And my favourite, this little squiggly slider that waves as a song plays on your device. I also love how the controls on the card change depending on the track's cover art as well. Now, while these look great on my phone, let's make them for the web. We'll start with the squiggly slider, as that's the most interesting thing going on in this card, and probably the hardest thing to make. If we were making this for some sort of production app, I'd probably opt for using an actual input element, and maybe even use a library like Radix. But let's just make this quick and dirty using a couple of spans and divs. So we're going to need a container, a left track, a right track, and a thumb. Yes, the thing you drag is actually called a thumb. With a bit of CSS, we can get something that is close, but not quite there yet. For ease of use, we'll set up some CSS variables that will let us customize these styles later down the line. Well, these straight lines were pretty easy to make, but we're going to need to tackle this wavy portion of the slider. My first thought is we could create an SVG and try to work with that in some way, but that's a little overkill for this squiggly guy. Let's keep things super simple. We'll hop into a photo editing software and have a look at this line. We can see it just repeats its pattern of going up and then down. If we crop an image, like when it's at its highest peak, and then trim off to the end when it's gone down and back up, this should be enough. You can see if we copy and paste this over and over again, it gives the effect that it's infinite. We can replicate this effect in CSS by using a background image. If we quickly convert our PNG to a data64 string, we can then assign this to the background image. We can tell CSS that we want this image to be a certain size, and then it should only repeat on the x-axis. Now, if we want this wiggly effect, we just need to animate its background position slowly to the left. This looks nice, but because our image is this random assortment of letters and numbers, we can't exactly change its color too easily. What we can do, however, is switch out all of the background properties with the mask property. Then we can claim this background property back and set any color we like. This is great, as it means we can color all of the slider using a single CSS variable. Sweet. With all of our styles set up, we just need to add in the interactions. This is as simple as attaching some listeners to know when a user has grabbed our element, how far they've dragged, and when they've let go. Due to elements all being in a flex box, we can simply just adjust the length of our squiggly line, and everything else gets pushed along correctly. That's mostly it then for our squiggly slider, but let's now give it a house so it can feel at home. Luckily for us, this card is a super simple layout, and we can break it down easily into the different boxes we can imagine the elements live within. We've got our header, our content, and lastly our controls. Then within these, we've got some simple left-right alignment, and at the bottom, just some buttons that all have the same gap between them. Thinking about a component layout this way is actually called the box model. Pretty much all UIs can be broken down into their key sections, and it makes it really easy to look at something and see how it should be laid out in code. We've got the basic shape of our card. Now we can spice it up by adding in some icons. We can easily import the icons Google uses themselves, and then with a couple of spans sprinkled around our card, we're getting close to a finished result. We'll also import the Roboto font just to align even more with how this looks on Android. And that's pretty much it. We've now got a nice squiggly slider media card that looks just like it does on Android. The only other thing is it's a bit annoying that we've got to adjust all these CSS variables to see how different songs look. Let's quickly address that by adding in an input field. We'll wire up a function to be called when we want to search for a song, and then we can hit the iTunes API to get the closest match to this. All we need now are some codes that can detect colors in an image and pick out a primary, secondary, and contrast color. While we could sit here and crunch the numbers ourselves, this sounds like a great task for our buddies over in the AI world. With a simple prompt and clear requirements, ChatGPT spits out a function we can just copy paste into our code base. Once we've got our data from Apple, we can find the colors we need and update our UI. And that's it. With not too much time or effort, we recreated this lovely looking component for the web. We can search for our favorite artists and it will update live on the page. We can also do so much more with this, like making the pause play button actually toggle the component, playing some audio, or using more accessible components and properties. The link for the code pen will be in the description if you'd like to give it a whirl. And meanwhile, I'm going to look into how we might be able to bring liquid glass to the web.